Hi, my name is Pouyan Darian. I'm an immigration attorney, and I try to focus my practice on applying for permanent residence, a green card for spouses and family members of U.S. citizens and permanent residents. We also do citizenship, other immigration issues, and a lot of immigration court. But the topic that I really want to focus on today is issues that present particularly for non-heterosexual marriages. For example, gay marriages, lesbian marriages, or anywhere on the spectrum. So let me start by talking about some issues that I see, some questions that present with my clients who are in these marriages and are applying for green cards. First of all, I see a lot of anxiety in the face of the intending immigrant, not the U.S. citizen. They're normally pretty cool about it. But the immigrant spouse who's trying to become a permanent resident is very anxious, and they have a lot of questions. So I would like to take this opportunity to answer some of those questions. Okay, so when a couple applies, when spouses apply for adjustment of status, which is the green card, they must submit evidence. They must demonstrate that it's a good faith marriage. There are some issues that come up when it's not a purely heterosexual marriage. For example, let's say two men get married, right? And the intending immigrant's family, right? So this gay man's family is not okay with him marrying another man. They're very religious, they're just ignorant about the issues, and they don't understand, whatever the case may be. I see this all the time. So when we submit the evidence along with the green card, normally we have marriage photos, we have photos of the spouses with friends and family. And these issues come up during the interview. I like to submit a lot of photographs during holidays and events with families of the spouses, so that, for example, a Christmas photograph or a New Year's photograph of the two spouses with their families, so that during the interview, the officer can point to a person in the background of one of the photographs and ask, the intending immigrant or even the U.S. citizen, who is this person? Who is this person? You should know since you spent the holiday with them. But a gay couple who does not really want to get their family involved for whatever reason may not have this type of evidence available. And they only have evidence with their friends, photographs with their friends. That's not an issue. Let me just stress that enough. You may feel like this is like a nightmare situation, but it's not an issue. Just document your life the way you're living it. That's really the key to all of this, because every marriage is different. I mean, there are certain cultures where the spouses don't even meet until the day of the marriage. What kind of evidence can they present? So the officer has to take the totality of the circumstances into consideration when determining whether it's a good faith marriage. As we all know, as we all should know, sexuality is a spectrum, and I am not by any means qualified to discuss this topic, but what I am qualified to discuss is that an officer cannot deny your application for permanent residence just because your spouse was previously married to a person of a different gender, or sexual orientation, or was born as a man and is now identified as a woman, or whatever the case may be. I've dealt with all these issues. It's not a problem. It is a problem if you don't tell me about it and we don't prepare, but as long as we're all upfront and you're completely honest with me when we meet and we discuss these issues, we can very easily overcome all of these concerns if they even come up during the interview. So of course I like to submit as much evidence as I can with the initial green card application, but you have an opportunity at the interview to present updated evidence. And in fact, we almost certainly must submit updated evidence. Just focus on your relationship. Don't worry about these questions that might come up. We'll prepare for the interview. Focus on your relationship. Focus on building your marriage. Document every step of the way to the extent possible. Yes, you may not have a wedding in a church with all of your family members there. That's natural. If you're asked about it during the interview, you explain it. It's not an issue. We'll prepare before the interview. And it doesn't matter how you respond, as long as it's consistent and both spouses are really on the same page about these issues. So let's say, from the perspective of a USCIS officer, you identify as a man, you're gay, you're a man, and you've been living in the US for 15 years, right? And now you're suddenly married to another man. This is just purely an example. The USCIS officer might wonder, did he just marry his friend to become a permanent resident? What evidence is there that this is a real relationship, or that this person's actually in love or in a real good faith marriage? So you really want to, and the key is that every marriage is 100% unique. So you really want to discuss these issues with your attorney so that you can be well prepared for the interview. You don't want to raise any red flags during the interview. You don't want it to seem like this was just a marriage out of convenience, which, I've rarely seen, but I know does happen occasionally. But really, most of the concerns people have when they come to me and they're really freaking out about the situation are nothing to be worried about at all, as long as you're prepared to explain your relationship and we're able to demonstrate through the unique circumstances of your particular life why and how this is a good faith relationship, how you're sharing your lives together. Don't worry about the traditional pieces of evidence that are on the form instructions. Don't worry if your family is on board or if you have photographs with them. Definitely do not manufacture evidence like that. I've heard people ask me, should I take a picture with my spouse's parents? And I ask them, well, do they know that you guys are legally married? And they say, well, no, actually, they just think we're friends. They don't know. That is not something that I would submit to USCIS, because it's a lie. And you're just digging yourself into a hole that you can't dig yourself out of if the officer is sharp and asks the right questions. The far more preferable and legal angle to take is to just be honest about it. No, I don't have photographs with my spouse's parents because they're very, very much opposed to us being in this type of relationship. So I guess the key point here is every marriage is unique, and don't try to manufacture evidence just to prove that your marriage is real. So there is one final point I'd like to touch upon for a portion of the population that was born with a certain gender or sexual identity marker, and during their lifetime they change their gender or sexual identity marker. For example, from male to female. During their lifetime they were born with a birth certificate that says they're male, but now they are female. Every state has slightly different requirements for how to document that, but it's not an issue. I know emotionally and personally it's extremely traumatic and can be very stressful, but just know that legally it's not that big of an issue and we can easily fix it. So I just wanted to touch on that point, just in case that's something you or somebody you know may be struggling with. I can walk you right through that, and we can easily fix that. From the government's perspective, you can have whatever gender or identity marker that you want. It does depend on the state you're in, but let's talk about it. I really just want to stress that this is completely a judgment-free zone. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, somewhere in between, married to someone who's somewhere in between. It makes no difference to me. The only thing that's relevant is that it's a real marriage. And some people are afraid or embarrassed to tell their lawyers these things, or to even come out of the closet. And it really bothers me when I hear things like that, because you should be proud of who you are. This is the United States. You have the right to express yourself and to be yourself. So, if you feel like you're going to receive any judgment like that whatsoever, please give me a call. Let's talk about it. Let's consult about it. I have consultations with people regarding issues like this all over the country and world. In fact, the majority of my clients are people who've never physically met me in my office. We do the whole thing virtually by Skype, and then we do the questionnaires. I fill out the paperwork, mail it out, and within a few days, their green cards are pending. And this is all I do, like eat, breathe, and live immigration and green card applications. And we're really, really focusing on this. So the takeaway is, do not be afraid of who you are, and be honest with yourself, and more importantly, your attorney. And thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video.